interact with. Let us ask ourselves some questions. Why should we discipline? Who should discipline? How do we discipline? Why should we discipline? Who should do the disciplining? And how do we discipline? Now, I don't know if, okay. Unajua zioni now ni sijui mira ningeweka hapa ndo. Let's go to the next slide, if you don't mind. I don't know if these, you may recognize any of this. Amabuko Secondary School, Chavakali Boys, Dota Craft Boys, Kabrak High, Kahuhia Girls, Kiamba Girls, Kibirugi Girls, Mbakaini Boys High School, Moi Girls Marsabit, Osingo Mixed School, Nambomboto High School, Vihiga Boys, Buruburu Girls, Kakamega High School. Do you recognize any of those schools? Any of us went there? And many other schools on this list have experienced arson in the last 2 months. Within the last 2 months from August, over 30 schools have had arson cases. This is what research tells us. The age of onset of alcohol and substance abuse has dropped significantly worldwide, from a mean of 21 years in the mid-1980s to 10 years in 2012. We are in 2021. It could be lower. The ages of 13 through to 15 are the years critical to the onset of substance abuse in Kenya. In the Kenya universities, alcohol, bangi, tobacco, are rampant. And the thing is, it doesn't start at the university. It is brought into the university by children from our high schools. In the primary section, over 70% are currently using drugs, primary school children. 3% are doing tobacco, 2% are on alcohol, another 3% are on Mira. You know, let us leave the schools aside. We may get caught up in this thing, the schools. Let me give us some other information. None of you use matatus. I am so happy about that. None of you interact with matatus. Thanks be to God. Because if you do, then you know that matatus, matatu drivers come from Pluto, not even Mars. The way they behave, I don't know. Let me take us back to another situation that some of us may be a little familiar with. This is the year 2016. In the year 2016, there was something called Project X. I don't know if you have the slide on, Project X. This was a party, and the poster circulating declared that no one goes back home a virgin. Everything goes. The less you wear, the better. And believe you me, some of us maybe have been scared when you see a poster advertising a function like that. You would run away from it. No, 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 they were running towards it. I had my students at the university where I currently work coming to ask me, I mean, there's this project, where is it? I am planning to go. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we're in a crisis. We are in a crisis. But you'll know that it is them, it is not us. Those matatu drivers, I am not one of them. I never thought I could find myself in Project X. That is not me. But think for a moment with me. How many of us go to supermarkets? Muleis, ndio iko hapa karibu Muleis. I don't know about Muleis, but I know about Naivas, I know about Carrefour, I know about Quickmart. There is this teller that says 5 articles or less. How many times have you seen somebody pushing a trolley that is overflowing, queuing behind that 5 articles or less? That is acceptable, isn't it? I'll put these ones down here. That is very acceptable, right? There was a time back, this era of politics and voting. There's this baby who had voted about 15 times. Because every mother who wanted the queue would board the baby and walk with the baby to the front of the queue so that she would be allowed in. And I ask myself, you want to... It's cutting off. Hello. Yes, the baby who voted over 14, 15 times. Ask yourself, where is our discipline? You still have lots of parking space here, by the way. Thank you very much, Pinto Kali, if you can expand the parking place, because where you came from, the parking isn't so much. And it is amazing how when people come to park, we'll totally disregard the directions of our parking marshals. And you wonder, what is wrong with us? Something is wrong. I have been told there isn't too much time, so I may not have time to go through a lot of the scriptures, and I'll just make reference to it. In Genesis 11, 1-3, there's a story of the Tower of Babel. And these people get together and they want to build this thing to get up to heaven. Pride. In Genesis 18, 20-21, there is a story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And God says, I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. In Judges 17:6, it says, in those days there was no king in Israel, and every man did what was right in his own eyes. Does that represent what we have today? Does it sound familiar? If you ask me where this problem is, discipline. Discipline. That is where all our problems are. And let me just tell us what those who speak English much better than I do have said discipline is all about. It is the training that corrects, molds, or perfects the mental faculties or moral character. That is what discipline is. Training that corrects, molds, or perfects the mental faculties or moral character. Or to punish or penalize for the sake of enforcing obedience and perfecting moral character. Another of those Queen's English speakers says, the practice of making people obey rules or standards of behavior and punishing them when they are not. That is what discipline is. When you hear the word discipline, it is easy to think about our disciplined forces and how they do things in perfect order. Oh yes, in my previous life, I came very close to joining the disciplined forces, but the one that I was joining wasn't the one of carrying guns, it was the one of carrying spades, the NYS. And there too, there is discipline. And they try to teach us, to instill into us some sense of discipline. But when you go back to the scriptures, this is what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9:27. But I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. That is what Paul says of discipline. Daniel, 1 Daniel chapter 1, verses 5 and 8. We hear the story of Daniel, and Daniel requests that he should be excused from eating of the food from the king's table, the wine from the king's table. Now, it requires a lot of discipline for you to do that. Because the food that comes from a king's table is not ugali na sukuma wiki. No. But out of the discipline that Daniel had, he could say no. Which brings me, next slide, to the subject of today. In Proverbs 19:18, we are told, discipline your children, in that there is hope. Do not be a willing party to their death. Discipline and teach your son while there is hope. And that is where I want us to begin. Disciplining our children. Hope when they're still young because they're impressionable. Hope when they're still willing to listen to you wholeheartedly. Hope before they end up lost and ravaged by sin. That is what the Bible is telling us. When you're looking at this generation and looking onto the future, as those children walk away and sit under the Sunday school rooms and are taught, this is the time, my brothers and sisters. Hebrews 12:5 and 6. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastises every son whom he receives. You know, we struggle with discipline and we don't step back and ask ourselves, what does God have to say about disciplining? and discipline. I know we all know this, but let me just confirm that we know this. When should discipline start? When is it best to train somebody to know anything? Any people here, apart from the choir, any musicians here? I am a musician. My musical instrument is my voice. In my younger days, I used to play the skuti, but that is a story for another day. When you want to train somebody in music, you start early. The greatest musicians start training, playing the piano, or the guitar, or violin, whatever, when they're still very young. Watu wa gymnastic hapa? Mazoezi ya viungo na kunyosha misuli. There are no gymnasts here. But you and I know that gymnasts start at a very tender age. And Paul tells us this. When he's writing to Timothy. Because you know those from whom you learned it and how from infancy you have known the Holy Scriptures. Timothy started from infancy. There is a saying, if you want to bend a tree, you start bending it when it is still young. Because when it becomes old, bending it is a little bit of a challenge. To try and teach me how to dance ballet and how to do gymnastics is an exercise in futility. My bones are set. They cannot yield to that pressure. But there is something else about these young people as you seek to train them. Proverbs 22:15 states the following: folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline drives it far from him. Children, sometimes this foolishness of children is just amazing. They love mischief. Their waywardness is amazing. Their self-will confounds us. Now, none of you were children. You are all born adults. But let me tell you one or two things about myself, because I was born a child. If my sister is here, please close your ears. When I was about 7, 8 years old, I was working with the Kenya Wildlife Services as a ranger. I was a commander of a battalion of about 7, 8 rangers, ranging from about 6 years to 5 years, 4 years, I think. And one day, there was a report that there was a leopard that had escaped and was roaming loose. So I summoned my battalion of KWS Rangers to go and look for it. I don't know if my mother knows this. Bless her wherever she is. She would turn upside down. Yes, we did locate the leopard's den, but immediately I saw the scenario around the leopard's den. I issued the command, scatter. And everybody scattered, and everybody to his own way, and we finally regrouped back at home. Thankfully, all of us were still alive. After I failed in my work as a commander-in-chief of the KWS Rangers, I joined the protection of animals. And there I decided to carry out an experiment at what happens. Of course, you know who my deputy was. I was a commander-in-chief and my brother was my deputy. And so we decided to carry out the experiment. What happens to a cat if you tie rags on its tail and set it aflame? What will happen? And so after extensive discussions, we decided to experiment. And so we took this cat and convinced it to come, and we tied rags on its tail and we set it aflame. I will leave it to you to imagine the scenario. Of course, they sacked me. And now, my brother also decided that this brother of mine is not a very good leader. And so he developed, he decided to join the CID. And so he became a spy. And in his work as a spy, he decided to investigate how it is like to steal mandazis that we are not supposed to eat and convince me to eat them without our parents knowing. And indeed, I ate. And he also realized that being a spy is not very encouraging. And so he joined another profession. It's called a firefighting. He became a firefighting officer. And one time, after having disagreed with our mother, he decided to set her kamisis and other garments on fire, just to see what would happen. Ladies and gentlemen, you were never children. I was a child, and I can say we were very innovative in the ways in which you could put pressure on our parents. You know, when we think about children, we call them very nice names: Baba, Mami, Angel, Princess, and many other sweet names. But have you paused to think that these are sinners in the making? These angels they are sinners in the making.